We are on our sixth lesson about Tfilah prayer. This is a big topic. It takes a lot of time, to explain it. So that's why we have so many sessions about it. I'm reminding everyone this is part of our course on Judaism Beyond the Basics, where we dive into topics, the big topics of Judaism, and we see how they start in the Bible, how they go through, the eyes of the rabbis in the Talmud, how they change, and then what do we do with them today, with these pillars of our Judaism? And prayer, Tfilah, is definitely a big part of it. And today, in previous parts of our lessons, we talked about prayer as a petition or praise, expression of anger, expression of historical awareness, and we talked about the biblical times. Then we talked about how after the destruction of the temple, we started with having institutionalized prayer, which means praying 3 times a day. We talked about the main prayers, which is the Amidah, which is standing, and you say the 18 blessings, or in Shabbat the 7 blessings, etc., and the Shema. The Shema, the important prayer of Hear, O Israel, our God is one God. Our God is our God, and it's one God. And then we also looked last week. We also looked at the other Shabbat prayers that constitute what we know as the prayer book. We didn't do all the prayers because there's a lot of prayers in the prayer book, and we might get to some of them later on. But I want to talk today about the parts that are highlighted. Start today. We might continue next week because we probably won't finish everything today. I want to talk about more practical aspects of prayer, of this institutionalized prayer. For example, the direction of prayer. Is there a certain direction we have to pray to? We know that it's Jerusalem. We know the Muslims, right? They pray to Mecca. By the way, they used to pray to Jerusalem until that was changed at a certain point to Mecca. So where can one pray? Okay, how to dress for prayer? Who can lead prayers? Praying in a minyan that we talked about, like communal prayer. The language of prayer. Okay, wearing a kippah for prayer. Next time we'll talk about talit and tefillin. We'll talk about today physicality and movement in prayer. So we'll try to cover all those. And by the way, the ones that are in yellow are the ones that are done. So we're pretty good. We're moving forward, not too slow. Okay. So let's start today with direction of prayer. Okay, and I want to bring this passage from the Shulchan Aruch. It also appears in hi Dan.
Hi.
You can see it wherever you want. Welcome, Diane Stone, member of our board. To our lesson. Okay, so when we talk about direction of prayer, these are passages that are also in the Talmud. The Talmud, maybe I'll do like a quick review of the history of Jewish books, okay? Because I'm going to talk about the Shulchan Aruch, which is a very important book in the, okay? Oh, this is really bad.
Sometimes Windex helps. We had them in school.
Oh, okay.
They're
Well,
awful.
you're going to have to bring whatever you have from your...
Okay.
Okay. So we have here, okay, the books, okay, of Judaism. And, okay, first of all, we have the Bible, right? Okay. When is the Bible? The Bible is... the
Tanakh.
The Tanakh, okay, and that's written around the year 320 BC, okay, according to research, okay. This is not traditional, what traditional rabbis would say. It's like what the researchers would say. Then we have the Mishnah. Okay, the Mishnah is really the foundation of Rabbinic Judaism. Rabbinic Judaism is the Judaism that we practice today. It's very different than the one in the Bible. Okay, and that's at the year 220 CE. Okay, so just as a somewhere in between, the book of the Maccabees, right? That tells us the story of the Hanukkah. Okay, so that's around 168 BC. Okay, so just so we have some perspective. Then we have, and the Mishnah is written in Israel. Okay, and so is the book of Maccabees. And the Bible, you know, parts of it are in Israel and parts of it are in diaspora, right? Parts of it, you know, we don't know exactly where it's all written. And then at the year of 550, I think, okay, is the Talmud. The Talmud is the commentary on the Mishnah and all the rabbis' discussions that we've seen a lot of them throughout our lessons. Very, very important book, and this is in Babylonia, okay? Babylon, okay? So this is a major important book. There are many other, you know, for example, Rashi, one of the main commentators on the Torah, okay? He dies at 1104, okay, in France, okay? So he's a very important commentator, and his commentary on the Talmud is monumental, and his commentary on the Bible is monumental. Okay, so Rashi is one of, like, you know, a big scholar. The Rambam, Maimonides, okay, passes at 204 or 6, I don't remember exactly now. I had a test on all that once, like 30 years ago, I forgot.
Rabbi?
Okay, so, and he's in Spain, right? Spain, Egypt, okay? So the great Maimonides, one of the biggest commentators. Then we have the Shulchan Aruch, okay, which is around, I think it's like 1560, I think, is the Shulchan Aruch, okay, and that's in Tzfat, in Israel, okay, and is written by Rabbi Yosef Karo, okay, and it is really one of the most important books in the Jewish world because it summarizes all the different laws that are all over the Jewish world into one book. No one's ever, I mean, the only one who's done something like that is really the Maimonides, is the Rambam, okay? But he also talked about things that were not existent in his time. Like the Rambam also wrote the laws of the temple, okay? Or if there would be like a Jewish state. So things that did not exist when Jews were in exile. So the Rambam is very important, but he writes a lot of times in a hypothetical way. The Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, writes the exact things that happened at the time when Jews lived in the 16th century, and he summarizes and he codifies the Jewish law, and it becomes a foundational book for Jews until today. For observant Jews, they follow this book very strictly, although there are different changes, and I don't want to go into all the other books that replace him afterwards, but he's considered the foundation. And today, when people say, when an Orthodox Jew says, I follow the Shulchan Aruch, okay, they don't mean that they follow everything because 600 years have passed since, okay? What they mean is that is the foundation for the way that they practice law, okay? Conservative Jews, for example, see the Shulchan Aruch as a very important book. We refer to it, but we don't go according to it. Okay, we go to other sources as well. We go to sources before the Shulchan Aruch. Orthodox Jews don't go to sources before the Shulchan Aruch, almost never. Okay, because for them, what Rabbi Yosef Karo did, he was like codified things up to that point, so you don't change anything by the Shulchan Aruch. So that's how it's like when you come to determine how to determine the Jewish law. That's a big difference between conservative and Orthodox Judaism today. Needless to say, Reform Judaism is not committed to to any specific code of law, so they don't go according to any of this.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
where did the Tosafot fit in this chronology?
The Tosafot is a very important, that's a good question. The Tosafot is a very important commentary on the Talmud, okay? And they are right after Rashi, okay? So they are at the 1200 to 1400 is the Tosafot, okay? And they are in France, Germany, where else do they operate? I don't remember.
This is a group of people that.
Yeah, it's a group of scholars. Each city has its own scholar, and they all make different commentaries, and then someone comes and compiles all of them into books. And on a Talmud page, you have the Talmud, which is from the what was edited by 550, and then on the right side you have Rashi. And then on the left side, you have the Tosafot. That's like, you remember, like the Talmud page, like you see the main text and around it. Okay, well, I'll bring it one time when we talk about, these Jewish books. Yeah.
2 questions. How big is the Shulchan Aruch? Is it one book or more? And then my other question is, what is the Zohar and how does that play into this?
Okay, I think from all these questions, I think we do need to have a proper view of all the books of the Jewish library, like the main ones. So I think that's what we will do. I will bring the pile of books here. Okay, it's going to be a very big one. Someone's going to have to help me carry them, and then we will open them. We will see, and then we will talk about each of them and try to do the importance of them. Okay, but just in a nutshell, the Zohar is a mysticism. Okay, I have to say I know very little about it. I'm not into mysticism so much and Kabbalah and all that. I'm less interested in that. I have some criticism even over that. I'll say maybe why when we when we meet. Although I have a lot of appreciation for those who do deal with it, and there's some interesting things and insights that I learned from there as well. I'm not dismissing it altogether, and the Shulchan Aruch is huge, okay, because it's the text of the Shulchan Aruch, and then there are all the commentators on him over the centuries. Okay, so it's a huge set of books. It could be like it could be like 20 books, okay, with commentators, and it's just like endless.
And it's written in Hebrew, modern Hebrew, or in Aramaic?
No, in Hebrew. Yeah, the Talmud is in Aramaic. Okay, yeah.
Didn't Shulchan Aruch evolve also after? I mean, even the Orthodox, don't they also modify it?
Yeah, well, they didn't modify it, but they have commentators on it. And the commentators on it really add new rules because things have changed since 500-600 years ago, yeah.
Was there any upheaval or major shifts when we went from the tablets to paper books, as far as able to get all the reading materials together?
That's a fascinating question. I will add that to the lesson that I will give because at the year, I think it's in the 14th century, in the 15th century, when they invent print.
Yeah, must have been Jewish, Gutenberg.
Yeah, the Bible, the Gutenberg Bible. Okay, so that creates a revolution. That creates like a democracy. Everyone could pick up a book and learn from it, as to oppose before that there were manuscripts, very few manuscripts. A lot of things were by heart. So it revolutionizes the way people learn, and also like the knowledge is much more, out there.
Created a lot of problems just within the Christian community, because now you had anybody.
Yeah, anybody. Yeah, the whole issue of authority also became in battle.
Is the Perkei Avot in this lexicon,
It's in the Mishnah.
okay, it's completely
Yeah.
within the Mishnah.
It's in the Mishnah. The Mishnah has, I really have to go each book. The Mishnah has 6 tractates and, and in them what it's all about. Like we need to dive into each of these books and explain what they are and what they have.
And Tanakh and Bible, you can use those words interchangeably?
Yeah, Tanakh is Hebrew and Bible is English.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay. So now this whole thing was just to explain to you why the source here of the Shulchan Aruch is important, and one of the sections is about prayer. Okay, it's almost like a book about it, but there are different sections. And the first one I wanted to bring is about the direction of the prayer. So it's from Shulchan Aruch, which is the name of the codex. Orach Chaim is the translation in English is conducting your daily life. Okay, so that's like one book in the Shulchan Aruch Codex, and 94 is like passage number 94, and it says. Okay, and this is like the headline of the passage. One needs to focus towards the land of Israel and the law of one who is riding or sitting on a boat containing 9 seifim. Seifim is like paragraphs. Okay, so each chapter begins with the headline and how many passages, how many paragraphs of law will be in it. Okay, so I didn't bring all 9, but I brought the ones that are relevant. So one stands to pray. Okay, so you need to stand for prayer. We talked about before, and we're talking about prayer, which is the Tfilah, the Shmoneh Esrei, the Amida. Amida means that you stand, as opposed to other prayers, which is like the Shema, where you sit down. And you remember we said prayer has 2 meanings. Please turn off your cell phone. Prayer has 2 meanings to it. One is the generic way that we call it, prayer, I pray, etc. But it also means the Amida, the standing, which is the blessings that we have 3 at the beginning that we talked about, right? And 3 at the end, and the middle in between changes, what we talked about 2 weeks ago. Okay? So when one stands to pray, if he is standing in the diaspora, he should face toward the land of Israel and focus his mind also towards Jerusalem, the temple, and the Holy of Holies. Okay, so I'm standing now in the diaspora and I want to pray. I don't just stand up and pray. Okay, I need to face towards Israel because Israel is the Holy Land. But even then, I'm focusing in, if I've never been to Israel, I'm supposed to imagine a map in my mind, and my prayers are going not just to the border of Israel. It doesn't stop at the airport. I need to continue.
Up the hill.
I need to start going up the hill with my prayers towards Jerusalem. Okay, and it can't stop at the hotel I'm staying at in Jerusalem. It needs to go furthermore into the old city. Okay, into the temple, the Temple Mount. And even there, it doesn't stop with, let's say, where the Kotel is, where the Western Wall is. I need to focus it even more into the Holy of Holies. Okay, so it's interesting that I'm meditating in my mind before I start praying, like I'm praying now before the Holy of Holies, which is very interesting, right? Because we said last time that it's only the high priest that used to go into the Holy of Holies. Who was allowed at the time of the temples? Who was allowed to go into the Holy of Holies where God's presence was? Only one person, and that was the high priest. And here, we have anyone could imagine that they are standing there. So this is what we were talking about, the revolution of prayer, that you don't just do it at the temple, you could do it outside of the temple. You don't have to just do it in Israel, you can even do it in the diaspora. Okay, now it makes each one of us even like the high priest. Each one of us could be like the high priest, imagining we're talking to God. Think about that concept of how it makes everything much more democratic in the prayer as opposed to the sacrifices that were done in the temple. That's a revolution that the rabbis did, okay? And if one is standing in the land of Israel, what happens if you're in Israel? Where do we go? So you face toward Jerusalem and focus your mind also towards the temple and the Holy of Holies. And if one is standing in Jerusalem, he should face towards the temple and focus his mind also towards the Holy of Holies. And if one is standing behind the ark cover, he should face towards the ark cover. Okay? This in case someone is praying where, if you are on the Temple Mount, okay, so that's sort of like where you turn to for a prayer.
Do we know exactly where the Holy of Holies is on the Temple Mount?
Well, that's a very good question. I was actually just there in January. I had a tour on the Temple Mount, which was very interesting. And I was also in the mosque, okay, where they say the Holy of Holies is, but that's the tradition. No one really knows.
Oh, okay. There's no archaeological.
Yeah, there's no archaeological finding. Although it makes sense that that's where it is, because it's centuries people believe that's where it was. Yeah.
For the modern person, there's actually an app that shows you how to direct your way to the.
There are a few apps, right? Very good maps.
Where does it show you?
Leave it to the app.
Yeah, there's okay. So it gives you the app of where to pray to, where to face. Okay,
wow.
I use when I travel to different places. I always use that app as well. Okay, next passage about the direction of prayer. If one prays facing one of the other directions, one should turn one's face to the direction of the land of Israel if one is in the diaspora, and to the Jerusalem if one is in the land of Israel, and to the temple if one is in Jerusalem. Okay, so now he's talking about, what happens if you are now, you're facing one of the other directions. Okay, let's say the whole congregation is praying in a certain way, because for different reasons, which we'll get into, the ark is facing that way, but east is that way. Okay, I mean, Jerusalem is that way. Do I turn around? Does everyone have to turn around when they have the Amida prayer and face that way? Okay, you see sometimes, right, the cantor and the rabbi are facing the congregation, but sometimes everyone turns, okay, and prays in the same direction. That's when the Amida is done. That's when we all face the direction of Jerusalem. That's why we rotate. Okay, it's not for exercise. So that passage talks about that. And then there's a gloss, okay? Do you know what a gloss means? In English, it means like a remark, okay? The remark here is not written by Rabbi Yosef Karo, okay? It's who was a Sephardi Jew, okay? It is written by the Ramah, okay, which is Rabbi Isserlish, okay, who lived in Poland. Okay, so Rabbi Karo is in Sfat, and he's a Sephardi Jew. And the Ramah, Rabbi Isserlish, is a Polish Jew, and they have different traditions. And when the Shulchan Aruch comes out and becomes a bestseller, and everyone's like, wow, we can't believe the work that Rabbi Karo did, okay, it arrives to different communities in the world, and they're like, what the hell is going on here? Like, that's not our traditions. We have different traditions. And they get very upset. But they see the greatness of the book, and they see it sort of like winning over. Everyone's like very excited. But then Rabbi, Isserlish in Poland, who was like the biggest rabbi, very important rabbi there, is like, wait, but what about our traditions? So he starts writing, instead of, rejecting that book and saying, I'm going to write my own book, he said, okay, I'm going to use his book, but I'm going to add my comments, the glosses, okay, where I differ from him. And then the way we see today the Shulchan Aruch is with these comments, okay? So you have the Sephardi Rabbi Karo, which is sort of like the overall theme, And in it, the Polish rabbi's remarks, where he differs or disagrees, or maybe he wants to add something to the laws that are not mentioned by the Shulchan Aruch. And so he writes, and we who turn our faces to the east, okay, it is because we dwell to the west of the land of Israel. And so our faces are towards the land of Israel, okay? And we do not make the place of the ark in our synagogue and the direction of prayer exactly opposite the sunrise, because that is the way of the heretics that worship the sun, okay? So the heretics would used to put, their altar or whatever, in the direction of the sun, and would pray in that way. So he says we don't want to do that, okay, because it will seem like we're worshiping the sun. So we don't put it exactly in the east. But then there's a problem. We're not going to pray towards east? How are we going to solve that contradiction? So he says rather we direct ourselves opposite the direction of the sun in the middle of the day, and one who wants to uphold their saying, the one who wants to gain wealth turns northward, or to gain wisdom turns southward, nevertheless should turn one's face towards the east. Okay? So this comes to a very big dispute in synagogues all over the world. Where should the ark be facing? Should the ark be facing east? What happens if the sun is rising there? Then there's also a saying that if you want to be rich, you face north. If you want to be wise, you face south. And then there's also just plain architecture questions, right? This is the land that we've got, and this is what we could do. Okay? So I don't know what's the story here at Ner Tamid. Maybe someone knows how they decided where the ark's going to be facing. It's facing pretty much to the east, okay? It's like a little bit angle, could be a little bit easier in that sense. But in any event, he says, you should try to pray towards the east when you do the Amida. Okay, and then there's like a big dispute between Sephardi Jews and Ashkenazi Jews. Do you have to pray towards east, or do you just need to attempt and try to face towards east?
Depends how
Yeah.
rich you
But
are.
unless you are on the complete east-west line, that is the only time you would be facing due east. Here at the synagogue, would be on a southwest, northeast line to Jerusalem. You wouldn't be looking directly in the east. In most places around the world, wherever you are, you're not
At the same
directly.
latitude.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question, because they see the world as flat when they write this. No, seriously. They see the world as flat. Okay, so I think you're right in that sense. That today, this is, for example, something that needs to be adjusted according to
Well, I don't think
to our knowledge today.
Even
I
in
think
Poland, they thought that due east was the direction of Israel. Even in Poland, which is somewhat further north.
Yeah. They
Well.
looked at it as east.
most educated people, even at that time, knew the world was round. Even the Greeks and the Romans knew the world was round. Even
No, I think they thought it was flat until.
Horizon lines, boom,
Yeah.
you're gone.
no, they
1500s they started. this
Okay,
evening.
but now let's see what happens if you can't determine that. Okay, one who is not able to determine the compass directions should direct one's heart to one's Father who's in heaven. Okay, so finally, don't say, try to find out where the east is, but if it's like too difficult and you're not able to determine, and let's say the sun's coming down and you're gonna miss, your prayer time, okay, just pray from your heart. And what's interesting is direct your heart to the Father in heaven, to God who's in heaven. Not direct your heart to where? What did we see in the previous passage? To the Holy of Holies. Okay? So if you know where Jerusalem is, you need to sort of like meditate toward the Holy of Holies. If you don't know, So you just direct your heart directly to God. So it's interesting, right? So you don't feel like you are on a lesser degree because you can't find the direction. It's like a nice way to comfort you in that sense.
So in our Beit Midrash, the ark that is there is not in the same location directionally as it is in the sanctuary. So
It's close.
It's pretty close, but I think you're right.
I
It's
think
not
it's a little
exactly.
bit like,
Yeah, it's a
It's
little bit
a little
more
bit to the
towards like
left.
the to
Yeah.
the left, a little bit towards like west.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So
I
again,
don't know how
sometimes
they
for
determine that,
architectural,
yeah.
for architectural reasons, you have to do that, or for aesthetic reasons, and it's okay. I mean, you should try to always have it towards east, but again, there are different calculations. One who is not able to. Oh, I'm sorry, I read that. If one was riding on a donkey, okay.
Just the other
This
day.
is okay. Well, this is before cars, right? Okay. If one was riding on a donkey, there's no need to get down and to pray,
Wow.
even if one has someone to hold on to his donkey so the donkey doesn't run away. Rather, one should pray while he is going. Okay, so here is something really also revolutionary because the Amida means standing. We would think that's the only way to pray. Okay, you have to stand. So now they're telling us no. There are some instances while you are going, even when you're traveling, you don't have to stop. And so too, if one was on a boat or in a wagon, if he is able to stand, he should stand. If not, he should sit in his place and pray. Or if one was walking by foot, he may pray while he's going.
State Farm commercial.
Even if he is not facing towards Jerusalem, even if he is not in a dangerous place. Because if he would stand and pray, the delay in his travels would be difficult in his eyes and he would become anxious and would not be able to focus. Okay? So this is also very important that if I feel that the environment which I'm praying in will make me rush or I won't be able to focus properly, it's better that I even, continue my travel. Let's say, I know there's a question like what happens, if I'm on the subway now. And this is like the only time if I stand now and the subway's moving, everyone's going to watch me and everything. I might feel, I might not be comfortable. So maybe I could continue sitting and do the praying. Okay, and all this is according to the route and according to the place and according to one's fear and peace of mind. And there are those who are strict to stand during Avot, the first blessing in the Amida, and it is appropriate to heed them if one is not in a dangerous place. Okay, so if you are able to do that, so at least the first blessing you would do standing. Okay, and the last part about direction of prayer is like, what do you do on an airplane, for example? And if one who has non-Jews, or there's a change, there are two versions here. It's not clear what Rabbi Caro wrote, and therefore there are two versions here. So one who has dangerous non-Jews on either side of him, okay, they're about to get him or something like that, and fears that perhaps they will interrupt one's prayer, the Amida, or will cause a loss of one's merchandise, one may sit in one's place and pray since one's mind is not settled regarding it. And even though one needs to take 3 steps back at the end of the prayer, nevertheless here, one just sits and prays and bows. Okay, so I could sit, I could do all the different bowings, I can't go back different steps, but I could attempt to imitate as if I am standing. But if I don't feel good or secure around myself, I can't focus for whatever reason, I could continue sitting down. So sometimes when we go on a plane to Israel, okay, and we see people are like standing up, sort of like, risking themselves by standing up or blocking, the way to the bathroom, or you can't, the flight attendants are like, can't move there on the plane because they have like a minion or something like that. So this is a good example that you should actually stay in your seat where you'll be safe with your seatbelt on you. You could do the praying and everything, and you don't have to start running around the plane. Okay, not a lot. Most Jews don't follow this, but I did read once a rabbi that said that you have to sit down and not walk around on the plane. Okay, physicality and movement in prayer. Okay, so we said that that there's a whole choreography in the way we pray. Okay, and actually, I do want us to bring the prayer books. Okay, so if we could open them.
So intent is the important thing.
Intent, exactly. Intent is the important thing. So if you're able to focus better,
Here you go.
in not standing, so you do that. Okay. The same goes, by the way, for someone who's sick. Okay. If you're sick, not feeling well, your feet hurt, and you will be standing, and all you'll do is like, you're stretching and not praying. It's better that you pray. Okay. So open on page 159. Okay. And I'm just I'm gonna read from here, from the PowerPoint, from the Shulchan Aruch. One should position one's feet next to each other as though they are one, in order to imitate angels, as is written regarding them, their feet were straight foot, which is to say their feet appeared as one foot. Okay, and one should bend one's head a little so that one's eyes will be downwards to the ground, and no one should consider oneself as if one standing in the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, and in one's heart one should direct upward towards the heavens. It is proper to position one's feet together, also at the time one is reciting Kedusha with the prayer leader. Okay, so there are a lot of instructions on how to do it, so I want to demonstrate this. Okay, so I would first be facing Jerusalem, okay, and then I would be taking, we will read that in a minute, but I would be taking 3 steps back, 1, 2, 3, like this, and then I'm entering into the prayer, which is like I'm praying and I'm standing before a king. I'm doing it in a ceremonial way, so taking 3 steps back, and then 1, 2, 3, there's 3 steps in front, and now I'm engaged in prayer. So this is sort of like helps me meditate and remember I'm standing before a king by taking the 3 steps back and then the 3 steps forward, and then I bow. Okay. Oh, and then and then you stand with your 2 feet attached together. Okay, and that's when you. I think that's the next one. Okay, the laws of bowing, the 18 blessings containing 9 sifim. These are the blessings in which we bow. In Avot, the first blessing at the beginning, at the end. In Oda'ah, the second to the last blessing that we talked about, the Modim, and the beginning and the end. And if one comes to bow of the end of every blessing or at its beginning, we teach that person that one does not bow. But in the blessings middles, one may bow. Okay? When one bows at the words Baruch, and when one straightens up at the name, at the divine name, which is Adonai. Okay? So we stand like this with our tuda, and when we say the words Baruch, blessed, okay, we bow like this. And when we say Ata, Adonai, you, God, we bow, okay, like this, okay? So this is the way it's done. Baruch, Ata, okay, Adonai, okay? And then we rise ourselves. And then at the end of the blessing, we do that again. Baruch Ata, Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ufoked Tzara, okay? So now, but at the next blessing, we don't do that. We only do it again at the last one to the last blessing, which is 164. And why? By the way, this Siddur here, you see next to the word Modim, we thank you.
Yes.
Okay, do you see this The sign, okay, that's a sound of bowing. So this siddur helps you, tells you when to bow. Okay, so it's really like, self-explanatory.
Rabbi?
If you didn't know, so it's modim, like this, and then at the
I
end
think it's
of
this one side.
164 at the bottom, you see that little sign?
That's Hebrew.
Oh,
What?
I don't read Hebrew, so I don't know.
But it's
you
also
mean
in
the little
English.
red,
Yes, the little red
The
like
little
the
red,
squiggle.
little red
scribble.
sign, that gives you the
Okay.
hint
Yeah.
to bow?
That's a bow.
Oh,
Okay?
If you read at the beginning of the Siddur, it tells you that. But this
Right,
is,
there's a manual here for all the different signs. If you.
now all of
this
us
is
on
the only
Saturday, we're all.
Siddur I've ever come across that actually marks
Where's the
where you should
bow?
bow, and I believe that most Jews around don't know how to do it properly.
Right, exactly. So this is like a very good way to explain it to people. Okay.
Rabbi, was there a commentary on which foot to start
Yeah.
moving on?
Yes.
Left or right?
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna get to that in a minute.
The one you can.
Okay. So, these are the laws of bowing at the end of Shmoneh Esrei, the end of the Amida, containing 6 sifim, paragraphs. One bows and steps 3 steps backward in a single bow. After one has stepped 3 steps, while it's still bowing, before straightening up, we say Oseh Shalom B'Momav, and one turns one's head to one's left side when saying Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, turn one's hand to one's right side, and afterwards one bows deeply forward like a servant taking leave of his master. When one steps backward, one lifts one's left foot first, and the distance of these steps is minimally that one places the big toe of one foot next to the heel of the other foot, and ideally one should not take larger steps than this. Okay? So now if we go to the end of the service, okay? So look at Amy?
Yes, Rabbi.
Are they bringing the flyers?
We'll go check.
Thank you.
I almost bought it.
Okay, so on page 166, okay, you see where the red writing is, and it says, some have the custom of taking 3 steps backwards and bowing at the conclusion of the Amida, as if exiting the court of a sovereign. Okay, you see that? Okay, so it goes like this. So after we stood the whole Amida, we take 3 steps back. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we say, Oseh Shalom B'Momav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu to the left, Ve'al Kol Yisrael to the right. Okay, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, okay, and something Ve'al Kol Yisrael to the front, and then we go back 3 steps. Okay, but we start with our left foot. I think I started with my left, right? Yeah, okay.
Left, right.
If not, I have to change it. Okay, we go like this, and then we go back. So just like the way we open the Amida, we close the Amida, and then, okay, we're done with that prayer. Okay, yeah, it's like a dance.
That's what
It's
I
like
thought.
a choreography. So the whole thought behind this is that we are entering the chamber where the king is. Okay, because we said we're imagining that we are in the Holy of Holies. We're imagining that we are standing before God. So when we are standing before God, we really, need to be mindful of that. That's why we go back 3 times and we go front, and then we do the same ceremony at the end of our meeting with our personal meeting with God. Okay, so we try to really be in that mindset, like we're meeting like a king. Okay, so that's the reason for all the choreography. And then, how do you dress when you meet a king? Okay, so it says, and it is appropriate that one should have special nice garments for prayer, like the clothing of the Kohanim, even though not everyone is able to spend the money on this. Nevertheless, it is appropriate to have special pants for prayer and for the sake of cleanliness. Okay, so this is also very important to understand that people didn't have a lot of money for clothes, and most people had, one garment to use. So it wasn't always clean. And then, like, how do you go to prayer? Now, you pray 3 times a day. It's not just on Shabbat. Okay. For Shabbat, people would for sure take a shower, and maybe especially in Europe, they would shower maybe once a week. Okay?
The mikvah's where they.
No. They went to the river, to shower, or or to the mikveh. It like depends, and sometimes they would have a bathhouse. Okay, there were different ways that people would shower once a week, not more than that. And then the question is, how do you pray in a situation like that? So the recommendation is like you try as much as possible to have proper clothes when you are praying during the week. But they weren't always successful. So there are a lot of laws about what happens if you're not completely clean. How do you pray? Which prayers are you allowed to say? It's a whole interesting discussion that we are not aware of at all these days, because we have a different hygiene completely than it used to be in the past.
So what about on Yom Kippur? I thought we weren't supposed to shower.
Yeah, you're not allowed to shower on Yom Kippur. You shower before.
Oh, before Yom Kippur starts, okay.
Yeah, before Yom Kippur you shower.
Starts.
And there are those who say that it's forbidden to mention God's name with an uncovered head. And there are those who say that one should object that people should not enter the synagogue with an uncovered head. Hats, kopile, in the vernacular, which are woven from straw, are considered a covering. But placing one's hand on his head is not considered covering.
Oh.
And if another person places his hand on one's head, it could be considered covering. Okay, so if you see sometimes people go like this, that's not good. But if I go like this on Larry's head and I cover his head, that's okay.
So it's the same thing when you do a fry.
I feel very Egyptian.
Okay, but this is also very interesting that there are different opinions about covering your head. Okay, some people say you have to cover your head. Okay, and some people say no, it's okay. You don't have to force people to cover their heads. Okay, so it's interesting that there are different customs, because the custom of putting on a kippah is really only from the 13th century. Okay, before that, people didn't cover their head while praying. It's something that people got accustomed to, and it's a much later custom to put on a yarmulke.
Isn't it called a cause of respect for God?
Yeah, that's sort of the reason that people say it is, but it wasn't the custom before that. People would pray even without a kippah. Yeah.
In a conservative synagogue, do women cover their heads?
They don't have to, but if they want to, they can. Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of women that do that.
These laws are made by men for men.
Okay.
Does the
So-
Shulchan Aruch comment on that?
On what?
Kippah?
Well, this is what we just read. Okay.
So that's out of that's where.
Yeah, there are those who say that it's forbidden to mention God's name with an uncovered head, and there are those who say that one should object that people should not enter the synagogue with an uncovered head.
But there's no actual declaration in there that one should.
Well, if it's forbidden to mention God's name,
Well, it says that there are those who say. That's
It's
not,
an opinion.
right, it's an opinion. It's an opinion, exactly. It's and the opposite opinion is like you don't have to. Okay, that we just read here. There are two opinions here, right? Okay, what kind of places can you pray in? You're not supposed to pray next to the bathroom or in a bathroom. You're supposed to try to pray in a modest place. There are a lot of rules of where can you pray and not. And again, for us, maybe we don't understand this because, we come to the synagogue to pray. We want a nice experience, but you have to pray 3 times a day and you're in work. And if you, depends on what kind of profession you have, it becomes an issue. Okay. If you're a religious observant Jew and you need to, pray 3 times a day, you're working in a factory, you're working in agriculture. It's a big question. It's like, where do you pray in a place of cleanliness in an appropriate way, because you can't go to the synagogue. So here's just one example of many, many laws about that. So the laborers doing labor for the house owner may pray on the top of the olive tree and at the top of the fig tree. And the rule of one should not stand on a high place and pray does not apply in this case.
As long as you
Okay.
don't fall off.
Well, that's why you can't pray in a high place, okay? Okay, because you could fall, or you might be fearful and not be mindful of your prayer. You'll just be mindful of not falling, okay?
Maybe you
But
pray,
if you're on
but
the
you
top
don't
of a
daven.
fig tree, or what?
Don't daven. You pray, but you don't daven.
You pray
Yeah,
not
you
to
don't want
fall.
to shackle too much, right? Okay, but with the regard to all other trees, okay, it is necessary to descend. And the reason that the olive tree is different from all other trees is because they have many more branches than other trees. And thus it is a hardship to ascend them and descend them. And the laborers, will be interrupted from their work.
They had a very narrow.
And therefore, they
view of
said
their
that they
bodies.
should pray there. But regarding the other trees, which do not cause interruptions from work due to the ease of descending and ascending, they should descend, the workers. And the house owner, i.e. the employer, even at the top of the olive or date tree, must descend to pray, for he is not indebted to his labor, in that he is on his own property. And even though they were lenient regarding workers because of breaks from work, they were not lenient regarding the house owner, okay? So if I'm an employee and I get an hourly pay, okay, I get paid by the hour, and now I'm gonna take a break, so maybe, by the time I get down and up, I lose like a whole hour because, I'm there on the tree, and I'm sitting there the whole day. I don't wanna lose that hour. I wanna stop now for 5 minutes and pray and continue my work, okay? So if it's an olive tree, and I'm not worried I will fall because there are a lot of branches, I could do that. Also, it takes me a lot of time. But other trees, I could descend, so I have to descend. And if I'm the owner of the place, I have no excuse. Even if I'm in the olive tree, I do have time to sort of like calculate my day and come down on time. So it's very interesting to see how a place of prayer could change according to what position you have in that factory. Okay, a few more. Again, the question of where to pray, where one can pray, is a huge question in Judaism. I just brought a few interesting paragraphs. It is necessary to open doorways or windows facing Jerusalem, so as to pray opposite them. And it is preferable for a synagogue to have 12 windows. So this is very interesting. There's a very nice custom for many synagogues to have 12 windows, and sometimes they write the 12 tribes names on it. If you've seen that in Europe and other places, I think even our synagogue has.
Well, we used to have more windows until we built the Levine Center. It was windows
okay.
all the way around.
Windows all over. Okay. So that's a very interesting, and also a window facing Jerusalem. So you could imagine the outside in a way. Not every synagogue is able to do that, but you should try. A person should make an effort to pray in the synagogue with a congregation, and if he's unable to an extenuating circumstancing such that he is not able to come to the synagogue, he should attend to pray at the time that the congregation is praying. This also applies to people living in small settlements and do not have a minyan. Nevertheless, they should pray Shacharit and Arvit during the time that the congregation is praying. Okay, and similarly, if one has an extenuating circumstance and did not pray at the time when the community pray, as in he's praying alone, despite this, he should pray in the synagogue. Okay, so you should try as much as possible to pray in the synagogue, or if you can't and you're back home, so pray at the time that the rest of the congregation is praying. And one should get up early to go to the synagogue in order to be counted with the first 10. Okay, so if you make the minyan, that's preferable. Okay, if you come after the 11th person, so you're just another person. If you're part of the first 10, okay, that counts. So I'm encouraging you to come on time to the synagogue. Okay, yeah. I know some people are going to say thank you, Rabbi, for encouraging us, but it's not going to happen.
It's a big deal that I could have it there before now.
Right. Now, another issue is language of prayer, which is very interesting, okay? And we think the only way we're supposed to pray is in Hebrew, right? But no. Thank you so much, Amy. I'm gonna stop in a minute so I could explain to you guys about the lunch buns. But thank you. So one may pray in any language one desires. Okay, and this applies when one is praying together with a congregation. But when one is praying alone, one should only pray in the holy language. And some say that this requirement to only pray in Hebrew only applies when one is asking for one's own personal needs. For example, one who has prayed for someone who is ill, or for some afflictions in one's household. However, when reciting the regular liturgy established for the congregation, even an individual may recite it in any language. And some say that even an individual requesting his own personal needs may request them in any language one wishes. So this goes back to a very fundamental question about what prayer is. If prayer is something that I say from my heart, okay, a conversation that I'm having with God, I want to have that conversation in a language that I understand. So if I don't know Hebrew, I want to pray it in the language that I know, okay? So it's interesting that throughout the centuries, most congregations kind of like ignored this rule and always try to pray in Hebrew, because praying in Hebrew also has a merit to it. It has a great merit because you are praying in the holy language, okay? But we have to remember there's no requirement to do that. So I think, conservative Judaism is trying to have some kind of like balance. So even in our prayers, we introduce some prayers in English, the prayer for our country, the prayer for Israel. I sometimes read passages of our prayers, especially Friday night. I read some of them in English so people get a feeling and understand what we are reading, okay? But it's okay to say the prayer in other languages as well, which is very, very interesting.
Well, until most modern times, how many people actually could read and write or speak Hebrew?
Yeah, that's like the yeah. Sorry, can you repeat that?
I was just saying that really until relatively more modern times, people really didn't read or speak Hebrew.
Right. So yeah, so that definitely is a big thing. So that's really the tension that what we have today also in the diaspora, that most people don't know Hebrew, or even if they know Hebrew, they don't understand the meaning.
Right.
So we have that tension. So it's just an observation that people still chose to use the Hebrew. When the Reform movement started praying in German in the 19th century, there's a big uproar in the Jewish world. That's what one of the things people were most upset about Reform Judaism when it started in the 19th century and changed the language of prayer. People said, "How could you?" But they said, "We are able to." Okay, it says so in the traditional sources, but still people feel very different with that. And actually, what they said is, which is interesting, they said you could use Yiddish. You can't use a modern language, because Yiddish was like considered like a Jewish language. Okay, so there are prayer books for women that are in Yiddish. Okay, have you
Women
ever
weren't
seen?
supposed to read Hebrew.
Right, because women were not supposed to read Hebrew as well.
Didn't go to Cheder.
No, we
Yeah.
weren't allowed.
Prayer just by saying the words, only moving the lips, not using sound.
Right, that we saw that, we learned that from Hannah, okay, that was at the temple and was asking for Shmuel, for her son to be born, because she was barren. And we saw that the way she was praying, she was like whispering to herself. And from that, we learned to say the words to ourselves, that at least we can hear them, okay? So there's that custom of people that do that, but you just have to be careful not to interrupt the other person next to you, because everyone's whispering to themselves. It could be very disturbing.
I seem to remember when I've been in an Orthodox synagogue, it's pretty loud doing the Amidah.
Especially on the high holidays, because then people have to use the books and they don't know it by heart. Okay,